Hello and welcome to the Dittonworks YouTube channel. Today I'm going to pit two very similar but quite different speakers against each other. The first is the LS35A, which loads of people will be very familiar with, and the second are these tiny little things which are the ProAc Tablets, the original ones. Now firstly I've got to mention some sad news that Stuart Tyler, who was the sort of main guy for ProAc, passed away a couple of months ago, and that's really sad news because he's designed some phenomenal sound and speakers over the years, including these and my ProAc Studio 100s and a whole array of other glorious sounding loudspeakers. So that's a big loss to the audio world, that. Apparently the company's in really good hands with his daughter and his son-in-law, so we should still see ProAcs being built for many years to come, which is good news. Okay, so why am I going to pit these two against each other? Well, they're of similar size, but these, although deeper than the LS35As, are actually smaller. They're tiny, tiny little speakers. So I thought it would be interesting to compare these two against each other. So let's have a closer look at the LS35A first. So as most people will be familiar, that these are a Kef T27 and a Kef B110 drive units that were selected and used by the BBC's research department to build the LS35A. There was an LS35 before that, but the drive units by Malcolm Jones were changed, so the BBC had to redesign it, hence the A part of the LS35. There's been some other significant changes over the years. So these are an 11 ohm pair, and around 1987 Rogers and various other manufacturers or licensees of the LS35A were finding it difficult to get really pairs of in-spec drive units. So Kef set about doing a massive investigation and production changing to sort out this Kef B110, and the surround was changed and it massively sorted that all out, got the production bang on, so you're getting matched pairs coming out. But it did mean there had to be some crossover revisions, taking it from a 15 ohm, which is most of the earlier pairs are, down to an 11 ohm. And also the introduction of bi-wiring. So you've got bi-wireable crossover in there. As to which one sounds better, there seems to be some split decisions on that. You can read somewhere that the 15 ohm absolutely wipes the floor with all the rest of them, or the 11 ohm does. Realistically, they should all sound fairly much the same because that's what the BBC required. So at some point I am going to try these Kef LS35As against some alternative manufacturers, and now I'll see which ones I can find, and then we'll put them together and try and settle that argument for myself against my Raymond Cook ones. Okay, so that's the LS35A, renowned for phenomenal mids, absolutely glorious sounding pair of speakers, but not that much bass. They're not going to be very good on modern dance music, electronic music. If you put these on jazz or classical music, they're just fantastic. It's mesmerizing how good they are. And you've got a similar story with these baby ProAcs. Now, what we've got here, we're no longer using Kef drive units, we're using, I think they're ScanSpec drive units, but you've still got this screwed on baffle, very stiff sounding cabinet, but what I've always loved about these, if you can see there, you look at that port, they're like straws that have been inserted into the port, which is a very clever idea that absolutely sorts out any kind of port chuffing. So, although these actually are really small, these actually do have a little bit of bass. I have played these on modern electronic music, and they're not going to compete with the likes of big floor standers, obviously, or even slightly larger stand mount speakers. Certainly something like my Spendors have significantly more bass than these do. But what I think these and these are excellent at is more near field listening and late night listening. That's something that I find some speakers don't do very well, that you need to put a certain amount of wattage behind, a certain amount of power output, a certain amount of volume, a certain level of SPL to really get the speakers dancing and singing. But with these, both of which, neither of them play particularly loud. They're not really good for that. But what they really are good for is late night listening. Now, one thing I have discovered, both of these are really difficult to record. I have tried doing sound clips using my phone, but with little success. They all sound quite shouty, so I am investigating microphones or some kind of digital recorder to really pick up what the drive units are doing and try and eliminate a little bit of room acoustics, which obviously the microphone on the camera picks up. So at the minute I can't really give you a true representation of how these sound using the camera. They just don't sound very good. But take it from me, in the room, certainly in a near field position, they both sound fantastic, although they both sound very different. So the LS35A excels in mid-range, so if you're putting singing on, they are fantastic. If you're putting saxophone, trumpets, horns, fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And these give you a perceived bass as well. There's a sort of apparent bass to them that when you're listening to them, you think there is bass there, but that's all down to clever crossover tweaks and the known BBC little bump that's sort of built into the design. With the ProAcs being rear ported and that very clever rear port design, it's not so much a perceived bass, it is, but there is apparent bass there as well. You won't feel it, it won't shake the room, but these do certainly sound like they go deeper. There's certainly more bass there. So even at late night listening levels, which these excel at, you get that really rich tonal characteristic from the LF. But where these stand out again is in the mid-range. I would say that the HF is just a little bit brighter than the LS35As. I used to have a pair of ProAc Tablette 3s many years ago, which had the slightly newer version of this tweeter. Same design tweeter that you would find in something like a Spendor SP22, which just calmed down the HF a little bit. They obviously redesigned the crossover slightly as well, and they were just a little bit more balanced. But I'm not going to poo-poo these, because these absolutely do the business for late night listening, near field position. I absolutely love these. These are fantastic. Are they better than the LS35As? Better is an interesting word. Better is subjective. They're just characteristically different. And if a little bit more bass is your thing, or a little bit more vocal representation is your thing, well, that would be the LS35As for the vocals, and it would be these titchy tiny little tablets for bass out of an incredibly small box. I absolutely rate these highly. If you could find a pair secondhand, that would be a top tip to buy, but don't expect huge amounts of scale out of them. They're not going to fill a room full of ear bleeding sound, because none of us would want that anyway, but they aren't going to produce the same kind of slam as a huge speaker will. But I've said it already, late night listening, absolutely fantastic. So that's a very short Ditton Works review today. Sorry there won't be any sound clips. I have tried, I just cannot get them to sound right. I've tried it right at the end of the room, right close to them. They sound best when you're really close in and you're just getting one speaker, but you're obviously not getting both sides of the stereo recording that way, so it's not ideal. I will try again, and if I do succeed, I'll post it in a separate video. But for now, that's the Ditton Works review on two very small little monitors. Take care, guys. I'll catch up with you soon.